and then the church puts you back in the bondage that he came to free you from, and then all of a sudden the gospel don't become good news. What become good news to people now is these cardinal things in the world. Oh, God bless me with a house, or God bless me with money. And that becomes the good news, and that's what people dance to, and nobody's dancing to, as Jesus said in, I think it's Luke and Mark, he says, we're pipe, but we can't even get you to dance. And what he's saying is, you hear the gospel of the good news of Jesus Christ, and I get no reaction out of you. You ever seen people sit in church, and they start telling you about Jesus Christ, he died and saved, and they just sit there like stones, and you're sitting there like, this is supposed to be a rejoicing period to find out. When you take the communion table, it's supposed to be a rejoicing period because of what he's done. But people sit there in that, but then you start preaching about your life, what you're going to have. Then all of a sudden everybody jumps up and start rejoicing about the things of this world, but nobody rejoices about the things that God is preparing for us when we get to heaven. And so when you start to see that, the gospel has really become, a chore. You got to keep this law. You got to keep that law. You got to do this. You got to do that. Can't do this. Can't do that. Can't do this. Can't do that. How's that going to be joy to anybody unless you understand the totality of the gospel that Jesus came to do? And then that's what you start to understand. Because if you go back to Adam, you have to ask yourself this. Why was Adam, Noah, Abraham, Jacob, Isaac, Joseph, why were they free? Because they had no law. The law didn't come to Moses. So if the law didn't come to Moses, these guys were never under the law. Once they fell, the greatest news they had was God's deliverance. Every time God delivered them from any situation, if you see when he delivered them from Pharaoh's army, what did they do? They all rejoiced and they danced and they created a song and they started singing to the God because they had been released from the bondage that they were in. And so that's what the good news is when God releases you from the bondage that's been tying you down.